available on the council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Attendees are required to wear face masks now, not necessarily.
Well, still do.
Would members and officers please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone, and switch microphone off when finished. Reporting officers joining using Teams, use the hands up icon on your screen for questions and comments. Please turn your camera and microphone on when speaking and off when finished. Please switch mobile phones off or place on silent mode. Thank you. Apologies?
Yes, Chair. Apologies. Sorry, Chair. Apologies received from Councillors Pedersen and Ghulam Javid, Chair.
Thank you. Minutes, the following for approval and sign off. 11th of February 2022, ordinary meeting of the board. Yeah.
The minutes that I've got here that came out with the original thing are not correct, are not accurate. And I understand a revised version has been produced, but I haven't seen it. So I would suggest that for the 11th of April meeting, we postpone approval of the minutes until we've had a chance to read them, because I haven't. For one, just to give you one example, on page, where are we? Page 8 and 10 and 11, in reference to a report on estate agents' boards, the resolution seems to be concerning Article 4 directions.
Yes, Chair, through you. Apologies, Councillor Franks. That was spotted. That was a type error of. Unfortunately, sometimes when we produce the minutes, you copy and paste, and unfortunately, there was a resolution that was left there that shouldn't have been there, and that was spotted after the agenda went out, and it was published on CMS, and a revised link was also sent out to members.
Well, nevertheless, I haven't seen the minutes as revised, and I'm not prepared to put my hand up and vote for something I haven't seen. So I'm formally moving that the approval of the minutes be deferred until the next meeting.
Yeah, members.
Yeah. No, I have copy, CMS. A copy, Chair. A copy of the revised minutes was published on CMS, and the link was sent out to members. So, I mean, it's up to you, Chair. If you want them to come back at the next meeting, then it's up to the committee to decide.
Yeah, I leave up to members what members want.
Chair, can I just say, I don't recall having seen an email with anything about revised minutes. I may have missed it, but I don't recall it.
Chair, that's all right. We can bring them back. Yeah.
Thank you, members. We're going to bring these minutes back. Thank you. Next minute, 17th May 2022, from annual council meeting. Great. Minutes 18th May 2022, call-in meeting. And there's a little amendment here. Councillor Chaudhry was now part of this. Instead of Councillor Chaudhry, it was Councillor Mahmood Hussain included. So would like you to amend the record. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Chair, the set's approved.
Yeah. Approved. Yeah. Agreed, members? Thank you. Yeah. Confirmation of Article 4 direction, executive noted the recommendation, executive meeting on 25th of April 2022. OSB Security Board meeting on 11th of May 2022, references to executive 30th May 2022. Legislation on Estate Agents Board, executive noted recommendations. Establishment of State Project and Luton Town Centre Strategic Board. The executives thanked the OSB for their observations, noted the recommendations comments set out at A to E, rejected the comments made at F, accepted the comments made at H, and agreed for 6 months report. Whenever a decision is required to go to OSP prior to the executive. Let a place be offered to the Liberal Democrat group on the Town Centre Strategic Board. That the decision made on this item at their meeting on 25th of April be upheld. Update on emerging Stockwood Park Master Plan, marked as a to follow item on the agenda. The officer has advised more work is required and requested it to be moved to the OSP meeting on 1st of August. The final master plan to go on executive meeting later in the year. No date has been confirmed. Noted. Thank you. Moving on to disclosures of interest. Any member?
No, none, Chair. Haven't received any.
Any urgent business?
No urgent business, Chair.
References from committees and other bodies?
Chair, no references.
Are we moving on to reports now? The first one is Corporate Performance Quarterly Report 2021 to 2022. Year end trading quarter 4. Please be brief and highlight on the highlights, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Aurora, one of our performance analysts. Aurora.
Presentation on the PowerPoint.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just, it's a bit slow to load, sorry. Apologies, I'm just having a system error. So this is the LBC Corporate Performance Year-End Report, including Quarter 4 for 2021 to 2022.
Yeah,
sorry, is this better? In summary, there are 19 measures which are showing green, 2 measures which are amber, and 10 measures which are red, which is showing that there is a steady improvement in performance. Changes to the report include, going forward, links to the Luton Insights dashboard will be included within the report in order to provide a more in-depth understanding of performance and changes within the town. And measures around the reducing net carbon emissions have been developed and are now included in the report. And Kat from the service has very kindly agreed to join us, and she can answer any questions about the work her and her team are doing around that. So the town centre footfall has decreased between Quarter 3, 2.62 million, and Quarter 4, 2.03 million, with a year-end figure of 9.21 million, which is below the annual target of 15 million. Footfall in Luton has been falling since 2016. The number of newly approved foster carers year-end figure is 12, which is short of the annual target, which is 25. The main barrier to recruitment has been the pandemic, because the usual range of events and activities around recruitment have been limited. However, on the 7th and 8th of January, the service presented a fostering service promotion stall at the Milton Keynes Job Fair. This yielded inquiries and will hopefully progress to recruitment of carers. The year-end total of people who were assisted to move close to the job market through Passport to Employment is 421, and this is less than the annual target of 744. And 49.7% of education, health and care plans were issued within 20 weeks, excluding exceptions. This is lower than the annual target of 90% and a decrease in performance from the previous quarter, which was 65.9%. The number of cases prevented from becoming homeless year-end figure is 311, which is less than the annual target of 370. And the number of affordable new homes completed year-end figure is 28, and this is short of the annual target, which is 100. And the percentage of influenceable council spend through procurement with local suppliers year-end figure is 37.1%, which is short of the target, which is 50%. The highlights include the number of airport passengers, which has improved relative to the same period last year and is slightly higher than the predicted numbers for this period. The recovery of passenger numbers post-COVID-19 is forecast to reach pre-pandemic levels by around 2024. The number of homeless households allocated a permanent offer through the housing register increased from 51 in Q3 to 63 in Q4, leading to a year-end figure of 212. This exceeds the annual target of 180. Statutory compliance completed within timescale, both housing and corporate, continues to perform excellently with figures in the late 90s to 100% mark. The rate of homeless applications to acceptances remained the same as in Q3, which is 14%, with a year-end figure of 15%. This is below the target and England average of 25%, which shows high performance. Timeliness of benefits. Despite a high demand for new benefit claims, performance is within target levels, and this same trend can be seen for change claims. The proportion of registered care services rated good or outstanding stands at 72%. Although the service has not been able to meet the target of 100%, the team have been proactive in initiating new systems and procedures to maintain the quality of the market and continually risk assessing ratings and monitoring stability. Total business rates due and total business rates collected has reached the annual target, which is 99%. The amount of council tax collected year-end figure is 94%, which is very close to the 96.5% target. The percentage of attendance in primary and secondary schools are both within their respective targets, with primary school attendance being 95.8% and secondary school attendance being 94.4%. The percentage of ASCOF adults in contact with secondary mental health services who are in employment have reached the quarterly target of 10%. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Members, any questions? Yep. Councillor Franks?
Yeah, not a question, actually, Chair. Thanks. Just a quick comment. I was going to say thank you to the officers for the report, in particular for the dialogue that goes with the statistics, which seem to either have improved or my ability to understand them has, because the dialogue has answered a great many of the questions that came up in my mind as I was going through the statistics. So thank you for that. And I don't know whether it's because the dialogue's improved or my understanding of them has, but in any event, it gave me a better picture.
Thanks. Any more questions? Javier?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just completely echo. I think it's improved the way it's been laid out and presented. So thank you, officers, because that was very clear cut. So I don't have any further questions either. Thank you.
Any more questions? Yeah, Councillor Wynne?
Yes, just a couple of quick ones. I agree. I found the report was really quite easy to follow, so that was good. Just a question you probably can't, I don't think you can answer it, but I'll ask nonetheless. With the recovery of passengers at the airport, when do we as a council start getting any payments back from the airport company?
Can you?
I think in terms of the medium-term financial plan, I think it's in 3 years' time, but we'll have to check, Councillor Wynne.
It was only just that
Yeah,
it
well-
rose because it was stated in here.
Yeah, what we'll do is, I don't want to say that for sure, but I think it's in 3 years' time, and I think it's in the latter part of the 5-year medium-term financial plan. So I need to check, but we do your written response.
Then a further question. Affordable new homes seems to appear in almost every planning application. I'm pleased to say. Nothing ever said about social housing, which is what I'd really like us to be building some of. But it says that the number of affordable new homes is 28 short of the annual target. Now, given all the planning applications I see with affordable homes in them, and I'm really quite surprised that we haven't got to the affordable housing number. Is that just that none of the houses that we keep getting planning consent for are getting built?
So I got some commentary on this from housing because we questioned this too, and they've explained to me that a lot of this housing that is coming through is planning was put through a few years ago, and it just takes a very long time to be built. And so things they were expecting to be built are not yet being built, so they'll come through next year. So it's not that we're not going to get them; they're just haven't necessarily come through in last year's reporting period, but they will come through over the next few months. And Claire Asbury also tells me that a paper's going to executive in July to increase our capital programme for new council development from next year. To try to be much more ambitious in terms of the amount of new housing which we're either acquiring or we're building. So, but again, there's always a lag there that it takes time for those houses to come through. She gave me an example of some housing that came through that were meant to be in the previous financial year, but actually came through last year, which was 15 of them. So we know that there's always a bit of a lag, and we'll just keep seeing those houses coming through over time. So I can ask some more information from her if you'd like to provide anything, but I think that's very much going to be our answer, which is they're coming through. Planning is building has been delayed for lots of reasons, partly to do with COVID, but we will be seeing them over time.
Okay, thank you. And do we know what the target is going to be for affordable new homes in the next year?
I don't, and I will find that out for you actually, and I'll provide that information to Eunice to send round because I don't think we've had that confirmed for this year. I'm just going to look at Aurora. Have we had anything on that? Not yet. Okay, we're waiting for that. No, I'm afraid we don't.
I'd very much like that, because we do seem to have a lot of affordable houses which are going through on the planning application, as far as I can tell. David would be able to tell me better, but that's what I think.
It's probably worth mentioning that the ones going through now won't deliver for some time. These are from a few years ago, and I think it is just very much a delay.
Thank you, Councillor Wynne. Councillor Prax.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm grateful to David Wynne for raising this issue, because there are a number of points that arise out of it. First is, of course, yes, they're quite right. There is a delay between the grant of the planning consent and the actual delivery of the houses. That's inevitable. One of the things that bothers me a lot is the use of the term affordable housing actually describes a whole range of different types of tenure. It includes shared ownership. It includes for sale at a discount. It includes so-called affordable rent, and you know, many of these so-called affordables, particularly the for sale at a discount and shared ownership, are not really supporting the people that we most want to help into decent housing, which is those who would otherwise go into council housing if there was such a thing as council housing, which almost isn't anymore. So I think that one way that would help, certainly would help me and my understanding, is if we could have an email explanation of which category the number of affordable housing units, sorry to use that awful word, which category they fall into. How many were so-called affordable for sale, so many affordable rent, so many shared ownership. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I've got a couple of questions for you as well. Town centre footfall, which is decreasing since 2016, and there is no footfall over town. So, can you just elaborate a little bit more in terms of any short-term strategy we have, or any long-term strategy we have to attract customers or people in town?
I can take this. So footfall obviously has decreased over the long term, as the statistics say. COVID has impacted on the retail sector massively, so that has seen a significant decrease. I think we will see that turn around a little bit in terms of the regeneration of the town centre and the types of things we've brought to Scrutiny in terms of the stage development, more, I guess, residential in the town centre with Power Court and their residential developments coming forward. So the town centre will look very different in a few years' time, and footfall will be increased because there'll be more people living there, working there, and using the town centre in a different way. But in terms of those decreases that we see in the stats, they're really down to, I think, the reduction in retail and people shopping patterns changing as well during COVID, more online shopping. And we've seen units close down, haven't we? And we've seen the economy be significantly impacted by COVID. So there are a number of factors that play there. And we've seen, we've talked about the nighttime economy here. We've seen that take a big hit during COVID and beyond. So whilst the statistics look stark, I think there is a plan to move those forward, and we've brought those plans here, and the master plan kind of encapsulates all of that.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. On this.
So for the last quarter, it was 2 million for the last quarter. How does that compare with 2016?
I haven't got the stats here. I think, Aurora, you put on your slide, you had some statistics on the town centre, didn't you? It said that, I think, did you say that there were 13 million in 2016, and year end, if I can recall what was up there, was down to 9 million.
Sorry, no, I don't have the figure for 2016. I can.
The drop was considerably bigger.
Well, what we'll do, Chair, if we can take that away, and we'll deal with that offline, because I think it's a good question, and I thought I read up there 13 million and 9 million, but I may have misread that. Yeah.
The only other figure they get is the end target, which is 15. It just says footfall has been falling since 2016. There's no number there.
Right, we'll get that figure for you, Councillor Chapman. We'll get that figure. I think it's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, members. And I've got another question in terms of aiming to reflect our communities, BAME employees. So what have we done in the past? And when we say we are employing BAME community employees, so can you just elaborate a little bit about the males and females employees we got?
So we've had some commentary from Human Resources on this. One of the things I know you were concerned about was a gender pay gap, which in Luton is 1.5%, which is actually very good when compared to many of our organisations. 1.5% in favour of men rather than women, just to be specific. And in terms of the ethnic minority employees, we have a target of 30%, and we're at 28.85% by the end of the year. the end of the year up to the end of March. So we're quite close to hitting that target. So I think that it's an area that HR continued to work on. One of the challenges they explained was getting data, that we have a lot of data about people's gender. We don't necessarily have data about people's ethnic background. So they've set up, and I think members may have had a report elsewhere, that they set up a process of having people in each department who lead on equality, and who are encouraging people to fill out their data to make sure that we actually get that information. So I think there's a series of actions which they're taking, and if it's helpful, I can ask for more information for the next meeting if you'd like someone from HR to attend.
Thank you very much. I also noticed somehow, there's a huge gender pay gap between males and females. So if you can.
Yeah, I think the gender pay gap at 1.5% is, well, obviously we'd not want any gender pay gap. I think that is quite a good gender pay gap when compared to other organisations. When that information comes out, I did look at that, and some organisations have ginormous gender pay gaps. So I think that, and I know ours has fallen. I think last year was 8.6, so we're actually getting much better. So the general direction is right, and maybe one day we'll overtake the men. That would be quite nice. But I will ask HR to attend the next meeting and maybe give a short presentation or something like that. Would that be helpful? Okay. And I just want to bring up, by the way, that we have Kat here because we made some quite big changes to the carbon neutral targets, because I think previously members have brought up that they were quite worried about it. So we've done quite a bit of work on this. So I don't know if there's any questions on those changes, because we've made some quite big changes. So I just wanted to mention that.
Very much your comprehensive report anyway. Any more questions? Javeria?
Thanks very much, Chair. So on the point of the gender pay gap, I think one thing which is really positive to note is the number of women that, for instance, Luton Borough Council as a major employer actually employs, especially in senior roles. So as we can see, obviously it's always an issue, but nevertheless, I think we're all moving in the right direction. And then with regards to, I suppose, BME data collection, I suppose, is it usually optional that we ask people to put that in? So we can only encourage, but we can't obviously, ask people to, state what their ethnicity is if they can't provide that information. But it's always great to see, especially, as with the council as a major employer, the amount of women that they are in senior good roles, which is really always positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Javeria. Thank you, officers. Thank you. And your quarterly report 2021 to 2022 noted. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8. It's a good business charter report.
Good evening, everyone. I think the majority of people know me, but just in case, I'm Sinead McNamara. I'm Interim Service Director for Inclusive Growth. Hopefully this item won't take too long. I won't go into it in lots of detail, but the report is around consulting, overview and scrutiny boards, around Luton Council progressing its application to become a good business charter town, and the council signing the charter. So in terms of a bit of the detail behind this, we're measured against 10 components around being a good business, which is around the real living wage, fairer hours and contracts, employee wellbeing, diversity and inclusion, environmental measures, paying fair tax, commitment to our customers, ethical sourcing and prompt payment. So as a council, we've measured ourselves against these, and anything where we had some challenges, we've addressed those. And we're ready to submit an application if Overview and Scrutiny Board and then Executive are happy with our proposals. We're also encouraging a number of other businesses across the town to also be part of this. And Fergus, who's with me this evening, has been leading those discussions with a number of businesses, including Active Luton, Luton Bid, the Football Club, Luton Rising and Eco Style. And the idea is that we're aiming to be the first good business charter town in the country, which is really positive for the town, particularly around a number of challenges we want to move forward with our businesses. So really over to you in terms of any questions around the good business charter, and hopefully Fergus and I can answer those.
Thank you, Sinead. Any questions, comments? Yeah, Councillor Franks.
Yeah, two quick points. Apologies for the first one because I can't resist it. I see that York is the first local authority to sign up. York, of course, is run by Liberal Democrats with Green Party support. And the second local authority to sign up is Kingston upon Thames, which of course is also Liberal Democrat run. I couldn't resist that. I'm sorry. The next thing that it's obvious and has to be said is this is obviously worth supporting, and we should support it with some enthusiasm. But I have one suggestion which I hope will be helpful. On page 78, in answer to question 4.7, do you circulate an annual or biannual employee satisfaction survey? Yes, of course the council does that, we know, but in the answer, I thought it might actually improve the answer if we were to actually state to where the results of that survey are reported. That's an attempt to be helpful, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is something that I would support, but I have a question on page 79 of this document, question on diversity and inclusion. The first one, 1.5 says, do you assign time and money? And for me, time and money to underrepresented groups is very important. So how have you evidenced this? I haven't seen any. I would want to see for the last 4 years what money has been assigned to underrepresented groups in terms of businesses. So if somebody can provide that, not now, but after this meeting, I want to see that, yeah? Because it's really important, because I remember when we had one meeting that there were no minorities on the board from outside. When we spoke to them, they did manage to get minorities, they made that effort. So if you're going to have businesses that is inclusive, I think we need to see the evidence in the last 3 years, how many underrepresented businesses have had money from the council or how much has been invested. So if we can have a breakdown, the whole money spent on businesses, divide and then separate them out into the or underrepresented groups and see how much money is being sent. Not now. I support this wholeheartedly. So
could I just comment that that question or 5.1 is around the workforce. So that picking up that point earlier from the performance report and some of the questions that were asked, this is around our workforce being fully representative. It's not directly linked to how we support businesses in that sense, but we can bring back some of that information you've asked for as a separate point. And we have been doing lots of work. So the Bury Park Business Forum is a prime example of working out in the community with our businesses. And I'm sure Fergus could expand, but again, we can bring that back. But I just wanted to clarify 5.1 was around the workforce.
That's fine. Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Javeria.
Thanks, Sinead, for the report. On page 77, under question 2, fairer hours and contracts, there's an asterisk in the actual question, regularly after the words regularly contracted staff, and there's an asterisk there. Does that mean anything, or is that just like a typo, or does it refer to something in the actual question? So on page 77, under 2.1, the question. So is it referring to something else, like, I don't know, a footnote or an explanation note to the question or whatever?
I think it's referring to the bit afterwards with the exception with flexibility.
Okay, right.
But we'll double check that.
If you can, then that would be really helpful, because it could be referring to like a note or a footnote or somewhere.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
We'll pick that up.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Javeria. Any more questions? Thank you. I would personally say it's a very good idea, and it's a digital and innovative era anyway. and businesses do need to be encouraged and supported into the, in an innovative way. So the way we think the businesses need to be encouraged. In Luton, we are doing a lot of things for our Vision 2040. So I personally support this, idea. It's a very good idea. Thank you. It's been noted. Thank you, Janet. Now we are moving on to agenda item 9. That's Luton Town Centre enforcement plans.
Oh, good evening, everyone. I haven't been to OSB for a really long time, I was thinking earlier, but for those who don't know me, I'm Vicky Hawkes, one of the service managers in neighbourhood services, and James Hardiman's also joined today as one of the neighbourhood operations managers, and we're also joined online by Chief Inspector Jamie Langwith. That's your cue. Yeah, there he is. So we're hoping we'll be able to hear him with the technology. But I'll just give a very brief introduction. There was £200,000 was agreed through the full council meeting budget papers for town centre enforcement. And so this report is to just set out what the intended spend is and plan is for that money. And whilst I just want, James will take us through the proposals briefly, but just wanted to point out that whilst this is about enforcement and the plans for enforcement moving forward, you'll be aware from our long-standing look at the town centre over the years that enforcement is very much integrated with the partnership responses around prevention, education, intervention and engagement. And it's important that whilst this will look at enforcement specifically, that we don't forget that it does sit within that much more integrated approach, which is really important. So I'll ask James just to take us briefly through the specifics.
Brilliant, thank you all. As Vicky said, my name's James Hardiman. I'm one of the neighbourhood operations managers. So the key approach to the funding and the resourcing is threefold. So the first approach, as you would have seen, would be to look at increasing visible representation within the town centre amongst patrolling resources. This will be around additional police resources for the town centre, and that's to, as Vicky said, to encourage and support the work that is already ongoing within the town centre, but to also improve those feelings of public safety as well, and reduce some of the negative impacts. So obviously the additional resources will focus and complement the work that's already ongoing around the neighbourhood enforcement teams and also the operations that are carried out. And as you can see from the report around Operation Foresight, which was carried out within November to December in 2021. The second part of the proposal would be to look at introducing an additional antisocial behaviour case management officer who can focus on priority individuals that are often intrinsically linked with complex factors and risk of addiction, vulnerability and exploitation. The additional case management officer will also look at prioritising victims of antisocial behaviour and providing support to those businesses and residents within Luton Town Centre. And a third proposal will be to look at creating a problem-solving fund that can support the work that is ongoing within the town centre. And this could be to set out operational guidance and funding for that, but also to look at place-based approaches. So in introduction and making changes and improvements into areas to reduce some of the behaviours.
And one of the other things we just wanted to mention is these plans, we're still in the formation stage around the plans and in discussion with the police still. So any feedback can help us, to finalise the arrangements.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Yeah, Councillor Chapman.
I came to this meeting today and decided to park in the Butte Street car park, the old bus station car park. I parked up the car, and when I went to the machine, there was a beggar at the machine who proceeded to try and run the machine for me and then ask for money. Eventually, I managed to get my ticket and put it in the car, but obviously walked away from the car thinking, I wonder what's going to happen to my car when I get back to my car. So I brought everything out of the car I could. I walked into Guildford, top end of Butte Street, with some drunks that were just being thrown out of the Northern, Great Northern. And there were some other people drinking on the performance area to your left as you come down there on the corner. And there were some more people drinking on the seats in front of the Easy Hotel. As I walked down Butte Street, there was a beggar just as you went into the Arndale. I walked through the Arndale, and as I came down the ramp from the Arndale, there was somebody drunk and asleep in the flower bed as you come out of the Arndale. And then I turned to come to the town hall, and there were people drinking on the seats in front of the, it used to be years ago, the gas showroom, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, we talked earlier about the drop in people coming to the town centre. And I know it noticed here, we said we're getting less complaints. Well, I'm not surprised we're getting less complaints because a lot of people have just given up and aren't coming at all. My concern is literally the volume of relentless enforcement. You're absolutely right. Operation Foresight had an effect, but it seems to me it's just gone back to where it was before. And I was concerned that the report was, to a degree, a series of well-meaning, good-hearted ideas, but without being too hard, was a bit wishy-washy, particularly the agreed joint objectives. You know, adopting a consistent and continual approach to focused enforcement. As a councillor, what I'm more interested in is, so how many bodies are there going to be in the town centre all the time enforcing things? Now, if there aren't hardly any, we might as well be honest with the public. The public asks me all the time, what are you doing about it? You know, and if £200,000 isn't going to make much of a difference, we might as well tell people. And I'm not saying, you know, and you may say that's being critical, but, you know, some of these things in here, Greek joint objectives, taking steps to tackle the drugs market that is underpinning the needs for individuals to beg. Well, in all honesty, that's about as vacuous as you can get. Of course, we're going to do that. What I'm really saying is, from the police, we need to know how many hours a week are we getting, how many bodies are we getting, and that needs to be made known. I think we need far more signage. For example, I think it should be a great big sign above all the machines in Butte Street car park saying, do not give any money to any beggars that may be standing by this machine. But what considers me is anybody from out of town would never come back after that experience. It would just absolutely, you know, finish them off. So what I would really ask is, where it says some additional on point 9, some additional police officer resources, we need to get that absolutely pinned down, and every councillor needs to know what that really means, rather than what is some additional resources. Is it really firm? As it said, I think where it says 29% reduction, I'm not surprised because we've already heard that nobody's coming to the town centre this evening. And it says here, location-based intervention stations such as targeting, hardening out of hours operations. That has been one of the concerns about the out of hours. You know, I mean, it's bad enough in the day. You know, at night time, I think they've probably gone down because it's like a ghost town now. But really what I would like is far more specific number of what bodies we're getting and what actual hours will there be patrols in the town centre. And I think that's what people in Luton would like to hear. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You want to come back on this?
I mean, I think that in a way you summed up the reason that we've put together these plans. So, you know, in terms of you know, moving forward, I think that I mean, I'll invite the Chief Inspector if he would like to pass comment on policing numbers, etc. But I would also agree with you that the additional signage, being really clear on our messaging is really important, and that's why we wanted the kind of operational fund, so that because there are some low cost interventions that can have a big impact, and we need to be able to facilitate those as quickly as possible. So, but I'm hoping now that we will be able to hear Chief Inspector of Language if he says something.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, good evening, Jamie.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, and nice to see so many familiar faces, albeit I apologise that I'm not there in person. Councillor Chapman, you make absolutely a valid argument in terms of everything that you've said. It is without doubt an area of policing, certainly within Luton, that we concentrate hard on. So the reason we have the only town centre unit within the county in Luton is because of the challenges in Luton. We've invested a huge amount of officers within Luton town centre specifically. I've obviously committed to that in terms of that Op4 site. We're in great dialogue with Vicky and her team in terms of what can we do next, what's the next thing. You ask how many people are we dealing with? That's a great question. In terms of who we think we're dealing with, it's about 45 to 50, if we're honest. Transiently, however, we don't know because people are coming in for a day and then disappearing. So there are some individuals that come into Luton and disappear. I agree. There is probably some truth behind the fact that if people come in and experience what you've experienced this evening, it isn't a nice experience and therefore won't necessarily return. We work really hard in the town centre to get it right. We had a meeting, Vicky and I and James, with Islington Council only last week. Where are we? Monday today? Yeah, last week. And we found some similarities with obviously Luton, but equally it was really clear that they hadn't invested the police service or the council actually as much as we had. So that's why they had the issues at the start. I think this is, and again, we are working through the detail, but this is part of our commitment and investment into the town centre because we understand that the town centre, any town centre, is the flagship of what the town is all about. So we accept that. I've taken on Nicola's views earlier about what does nighttime economy look like? What does the retail sector look like? So all of those pieces, and I think it's a bit of a jigsaw at the minute, all of those pieces in the jigsaw need to be put all together in order so that we can flourish in Luton. And that 2040 vision that we talk about, and again, Vicky and I had a conversation earlier, that 2040 vision, I think we need to build on that now. And I know that Sinead and her team is doing a fantastic job of that. But from a policing stroke council point of view and the enforcement and everything else, we start to build on that now, because 2040, let's be honest with everybody, will soon creep up on us and we'll go, well, what are we doing about it? So in terms of your question, Councillor Chapman, I think it's about 45, 50 people. We have 5 police officers and 4 PCSOs. I say dedicated to the town centre. I have to be really careful what I say there, because when we say dedicated to the town centre, they are in the town centre. Their main job is in the town centre. But of course, with incidents and everything else that go on in the town, sometimes they're abstracted away from the town centre because of a risk-based demand that we have within policing, and we have to move where the risk is. I think that's it, and I hope that answers some, if not all, of your questions.
Very much, Jamie, for coming, and Sarah.
Could I just add, because Councillor Chapman, you asked about specific additional resources, and although Vicky has said and Chief Inspector has said we're still in negotiations in terms of what this actually looks like. We have £200,000 to invest in that resource, and we would hope that in terms of additional enforcement bodies dedicated to the town centre, that we're looking at 3 to 4 additional staff, and that would be a combination of our own LBC staff and the police resource as well. but we can't be more specific than that because we're still working through the detail.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Banks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you wander around my area and talk to my neighbours and other people in the area generally, and it's pretty obvious why the number of complaints about the town centre is going down and down and down. It's because you'll have to look very hard indeed to find anyone who ever these days comes into the town centre. Many have not been into the town centre for years. This isn't a new problem, but it has got worse, and it continues to get worse. And frankly, whether this so-called plan is actually going to improve things, I have to say I've got my doubts. I really do have my doubts. I'm hoping, almost against hope, that the repopulation of the town centre, as we get new housing developments around the town centre, is actually going to improve the situation. But I promise you, it won't if the new flats that are coming up around the town centre are occupied by commuters. It will only actually improve the situation if local people are repopulating the town centre. People who will then hopefully use the town centre and demonstrate that they're not prepared to put up with the disgusting and dangerous behaviour that anyone who does currently use the town centre witnesses every time they do. So I'm really sorry to say this is a really nice sounding effort, and I hope it has some success. But it's going to take a great deal more than this. And yes, I know we're constantly told it's an educational problem. Yes, it is an educational problem, but the education won't work unless the stick works as well. The carrot all on its own won't work. You need the carrot, but you need the stick as well. And you need to demonstrate that enforcement is actually happening, and to be able to demonstrate that to people that you want to attract back into the town centre.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. Any more comments, questions, Julia?
Thank you very much, officers, for your report. So in one of my other hats as one of the councillors for the local area, I'm regularly in contact with not only the community policing team, but also with the town centre policing team. For what it's worth, I've actually seen an improvement, and residents have actually reported that back to me, that there has been an improvement, particularly in the town centre. I mean, I use the town centre regularly, to be honest. And, you know, obviously when I'm commuting from London, and also, you know, to buy things when I need to, and obviously see people. And I do see visibility. And I've also been out on operations as well. With the town centre policing team on a regular basis. And obviously resources is always going to be an issue for our policing team. But I think this isn't just on the police. We're actually, you know, it's about the council and the other partners that work in partnership with, so for instance, the policing team, in order to, you know, bring about improvements. And I understand, I think this is perhaps, Nicola, if you can perhaps correct me, I think have Luton Bid also sort of have some sort of enforcement officers that also regularly work with the enforcement team as well, as part of the enforcement team in the council.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, in a long-winded, silly question way. So
yeah, so to confirm that, so obviously Luton Bid do part fund for one of the neighbourhood enforcement officers, and then Luton Borough Council have match funded. So we provide 2 dedicated neighbourhood enforcement officers to the town centre. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. It's been one of those days, all thoughts all over the place. So to cut a long story short, you know, I absolutely agree with what colleagues are saying. For the purposes of the report, but I think at the same time, I mean, there are improvements, and this isn't just a, you know, it's all the police, and police needs to do everything. It's a collaborative approach, and it's about, we need to work together with, you know, well, they need to work together with stakeholders to be able to bring about those improvements. And I think under our 2040 vision, as well as under the, you know, the council's master plan, I think there will be improvements, but it's going to take time. But I think, you know, it's about working together, to be honest. to obviously deal with the dynamics and the challenges that are in the town centre. And, you know, I regularly, for the past few weeks, have been seeing the same people get onto the trains with me from London and come all the way into Luton, obviously begging for money, and then use the same train again. So I think this is probably something that obviously we need to obviously pick up with the local train station as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. After hearing all the comments made by the officers and members, we all agreed on this. Our town centre is our central point, and our public safety and public peace of mind in terms of everything is very important. So OSP support the future enforcement plans for the town centre. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we are moving on to agenda item 11. 11. Yes, Scrutiny Annual Report 2021-2022. Eunice?
Through you, Chair. Just briefly, this is an annual scrutiny report that report on all the activities of scrutiny, including all the other subcommittees. The board is recommended to agree the content of the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report 2021-2022 as set out at Appendix A for submission to the next council meeting on Tuesday, the 19th of July. There's a second recommendation there, which is for the board to delegate authority to the Democracy and the Scrutiny Manager to make amendments that are deemed necessary before final publication and submission to the council. So basically, this includes some of the achievements of scrutiny work in the past year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Eunice, for this report. I know when there is OSB Scrutiny Board's role, there is your role is very important, Angela's as well. So thank you very much for everything. Any comments, questions? Councillor Franks?
Yeah, just two questions. First of all, I know there are quotes from a number of people. I guess we're entitled to assume that they've approved those quotes. So that's the first question. And the second is, has Anna Peterson actually agreed the text of the report? She's expecting to be home from hospital today, so she should hopefully be available by phone at least sometime within the next few days. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to vote for it, provided the quotes have been approved by those who are named, and the whole thing has been approved by Anna Peterson.
Yes, through you, Chair. I worked with the Chair throughout the pulling of this report together, okay. And she was quite happy with the report to be submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks, for mentioning this. Just a part-time chair, you all know that. So, so no questions or comments on this. Any question, comment, any more? Thank you very much. The report has been noted, and that's it. Work program. Wait a second.
Chair, I know you've mentioned this briefly earlier on, but just to recap that item on the Stockwood Park master plan is not quite ready for submission yet. Yeah. So officers are aware that this board would want to make comments prior to submission to executive. As soon as we have received those dates, we will let members know. Thank you, Chair.
Agreed, Janice. That's fine. I think members don't have any issue with that. Any comments?
Well, only to ask whether there is any indication as to when we're likely to get the Stockwood report.
Unfortunately, at the moment, we haven't got any indications. Officers are working through this with external consultants, and as soon as they can let us know, we would advise members.
Yep, thank you for that. I mean, clearly, when we do get the report, we want it to be up to date and accurate. So it's better to wait and get it right than to have it too soon and not be complete. But it has been chigging along for quite a long time now.
Thank you, Councillor Banks. Anything else, Eunice?
Just 2 additional items to the meeting of 19th September. We have the selective licensing coming from David Stevenson and additional HMO licensing scheme. Oh, and inclusive of the electric vehicle charging point strategy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All done?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That concludes the meeting tonight. Thank you for attending, for your attendance, everyone. Thank you.